I'm telling you, the answer to any school problems is not doing more. I've seen this firsthand. I remember in Chicago, because of abysmal math scores, reading scores, the solution by our genius mayor at the time, Rahm Emanuel, was we'll just extend the school day. We'll keep doing what we've been doing, which wasn't very good. We'll just do it for longer. That doesn't work. More meetings, more initiatives, more hours at school, more nights working at home. This is not the path to success. You can't lead others until you learn to lead yourself. So success starts within. It's a radical exploration of who you are on the inside. And if you don't go on that adventure, that exploration within, there's a great cost. Today's guest, Joël McLean, learned this the hard way, and we want you to avoid the lessons that he's learned. He was standing in his superintendent's office, fighting through a cold, managing some really bad student behavior. He was worrying about his own kids, that his son and daughter were at his school. And he had a moment in that superintendent's office where it actually just kind of went to be a blur for him. He couldn't hear what was going on. He only heard basically those Charlie Brown voices. And that's when he knew something had to change. We explore this topic, this wake-up moment for Joël, and other content that he shares in his brand new book that's Ruckus Maker approved, called Transcending Your Leadership. Check it out and check out today's episode. I'm Danny Bauer. This is Better Leaders, Better Schools, the original Ruckus cast for visionary leaders who want to do school different, even within a traditional system, so that you create a campus experience worth showing up for. Thanks to Ruckus makers just like you, this show ranks in the top 1% of all shows. That's nearly 4 million podcasts worldwide. So thanks again for pressing play. I hope you enjoy the show. We'll be back with the main content after just a few short messages from our wonderful show sponsors. Looking to create the kind of campus experience students never forget? ODP Business Solutions transforms ordinary spaces into extraordinary learning environments. Visit odpbusiness.com/education and let's do school different. That's odpbusiness.com/education. This episode is brought to you by Play Piper. Teachers know that keeping students engaged in STEM can be really tough, and Piper is here to help. Our award-winning STEM kits make science and engineering hands-on, playful, and fun, so students build confidence while building real-world skills. Join educators around the country who are using Piper to inspire future creators. Visit playpiper.com to learn more. That's playpiper.com. If you could differentiate instruction in 20 minutes or less, would you do it for all your students? Well, you can with IXL. Over 1 million teachers use IXL because it empowers them to use effective data-informed instruction. And you can get started today at ixl.com/leaders. That's ixl.com/leaders. All right, welcome back to the show, Joël.
Thank you very much, Danny. A pleasure to be here. Better Leaders, Better Schools. I've been following, you and the tribe for a long time now. So it's great to be back. I've been on the podcast before. I always love talking with you. I appreciate your support. You've been supporting me throughout all the years, and I was part of the mastermind group at one point. Yeah. So right. I'm so happy to be back and to be able to talk with you and, pick each other's brain a little bit. So
for sure. We have a lot to learn from you. I've always been impressed, by the work that you've done. And like you said, we had the opportunity and the pleasure. I was probably leading the mastermind back then. Is that right? Or
yeah, you were leading masterminds, and I think you had started just getting some people on board to start, okay. Leading some other groups, because you were growing quite quickly, actually. So I think you had about 5 or 6 groups back then.
Yeah, and then you kind of moved from that principal to working with principals, but I think for the government, right, and kind of that kind of level. and
Yeah.
now you're out there doing things, on your own. And so I've seen you evolve too, which has really been fun. And
Yeah.
that's the neat thing. I mean, it's crazy. Last thing I'll say that'll date us is that, like, it's wild, but this show's been around for a decade.
I
I
know.
still kind of feel like I just started,
Yeah.
but then you look and the calendar tells you you've done 10 shows every week, at least one a week
I know.
for 10 years.
I know.
It's insane.
And I still remember when I
So,
discovered the podcast, we
oh
talked
yeah.
about the gym before recording, right?
Tell
And
me about that moment. Did the clouds open in the
oh,
sky? The sun was.
I think I seen it. I don't know if it popped up in podcasts on my iPhone or if I'd actually seen it. I probably
Yeah.
seen it online because I had by then started searching to be able to find some resources for leadership development, and I was
Yeah.
looking for stuff to listen to because I didn't want to just be on the treadmill or on the stepper while
Sure.
doing cardio and just not be listening to music. Because I'll listen to music when I'm doing weights and stuff, but I like to be thinking when I'm up there, right? And that's how. And I remember
Mhm.
discovering your podcast. I'm like, oh, so there's actually one that talks about leadership development and that's geared towards educational leadership. So that was a
Yeah.
big discovery for me, and then it led to a whole bunch of things. And I don't think I'd be here today, and I'll give props to you, Danny, because everything happens for a
Uh,
reason. Every meeting I think that I
mhm.
have with people, there's a reason for it, and all those little steps that you take in your journey, it allows you to take certain roads, right, in your life, and it brings it to where you are today. And I'm so happy I discovered the podcast. It was great, and I know what you mean because I've got my podcast as well. And it's
Yeah.
funny because I
Yeah.
just recorded an episode yesterday, and at the beginning I told the people, I said, the listeners, I've been recording this podcast now for 6 years. I said 6 years. It's actually 8 years. And because you're saying, you don't realize I said six, and I go, oh, I'm
Yeah.
just going to leave it there. I'm not going to edit it out. I was going to take it
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
then I said, that's all right. But it does go by fast, and it's unbelievable
Wow.
how time flies.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, kudos to you on that show as well. And also your mindset. I mean, because, you have to have a specific kind of like worldview to think that sort of the universe is conspiring for your success or working on your behalf. And even in positive, negative sort of events, looking for like, what does this teach me? How does it help me get better? And that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Versus so many people are plagued by like a victim mindset.
Yeah.
Things are happening to me. I've got it so bad versus, yeah, that really sucked, but here's what I learned, and it made me better at the end of the day. So, yeah, appreciate that about you. But you have a new book, Transcending Your Leadership,
I do.
and it's available, Ruckus Maker approved. So, check that
I have it
out.
right
But
here.
before we oh, hey, now
There it
we go.
is. So
Looking
proud.
good, looking good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be. You should be.
I am.
We're gonna dig into that content, but I want to start with you opening up with a story here. And could you tell us about a day that you never forget at a very difficult school?
Oh yes, I've got more than one, but I've got the one story that I might have even said, the last time I was on the podcast. I don't remember, but that story is in my book because it involves
Yeah.
my daughter actually.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that it's not so much as it was a difficult school in terms of the staff, because that can sometimes be challenging in the school, right? Sometimes the staff will give you much more challenges than the students will. But it was a bigger
Yeah.
scope. So I'll get into the context of it. So basically, I was the new principal in a JK to grade 6 school. So we had about 275 students, and I didn't have any VPs. It was just me as the building principal. And I had just come out of, I had been assigned there, and I had been in another school before that for 4 years, which was a much smaller school, about 175 kids. And I've always said that school there, Saint Vincent, was my savior school because my first 3 years as a principal, they were very difficult years. So I had a challenging staff, and we went through a lot of things, and I learned a lot of things. And from that school, that's when I moved on to Saint Vincent. But then I spent 4 years there and had a fantastic time. That school saved me. The staff saved me, probably from burnout, and I was able to really put things into place where I was able to really realize that maybe some of the problems, there's some of the things that I could have done different for sure, but a lot of the problems maybe didn't stem from me because I had started doubting myself, right? Should I be doing this job? Maybe it's me the problem. And So when I got to that new school, I made sure to put some of the same things into place. And I told myself, just be yourself, act like you were before, and you'll know pretty
Mm.
quick, if you need to change some things, and ask for feedback with the staff. And anyways, it turned out really great. So I came into this school here, and I ended up only being 1 year in that school. And it was a very large school, but we also had a program inside in the school where we were working with some pretty high behavior students, right? So we were working with students in our board, but we were also working with students from another board. So we had a classroom in the school. We had some teachers and some TAs that were helping as well inside the classroom. But it was very challenging. We were talking about kids with some pretty high risk behavior, violent behavior. So there was a lot of tension in the school, right? So you come in from a smaller school where you've been there for 4 years. Things are in place. It's rolling pretty much well by itself, right? Great staff, and then you come into this much bigger boat with bigger staff, all excellent people, but with different challenges, right? So then you're trying to see if you're going to be equipped for that kind of a challenge, right? And so here I was, I think it was somewhere around November, and I was getting pretty tired. Usually by that time of the year, at least one bad cold has hit me, probably because of the fatigue. It was usually around that time, and I did get a cold. And I remember it was November because it was a Movember event in the school. And I had
Oh,
I had grown my mustache for the event, right? We did a fundraiser. And the big thing
sure.
was that you got to shave the principal's mustache, right? With an
Oh, wow.
electric razor.
Okay. Not a
So that
straight blade.
was, yeah. So that was that was the big event, and it was in the school gym, and we had media there, local media. We had board representatives. We had the school. We had some parents, so anyway, so during this event, what was special about it was that it ended up being my daughter, which was, I think she was in grade 4. So it was the only school in
Mm.
which I actually had my 2 children in the same
Right.
school as I was. So that was pretty special. But it ended up being my daughter that had shaved me. But that same day, I had received a message. I think it was the morning of, or maybe the day before. My superintendent and the director of education and whatnot, that whole team wanted to meet with me at the board. And I knew
Mhm.
that, things were a little difficult, and we were still struggling to get some processes into place and get some resources into place. So, I was going into this meeting. I wasn't feeling well. I was lightheaded, and I was nervous as heck. And I knew that we were struggling a little bit as a team. And I was just thinking, how can I bring my team together and get our heads around, some of the challenges that we're facing. So I was a little worried, Danny, going into that meeting. I was like, I didn't know what to
Yeah,
expect.
yeah.
And
Right.
so I right after the event, so, mustache freshly shaven, at least I had a good clean shave before I got there anyways. But so I get to the meeting, it was the same day. It was only a few hours after. And I get there, and then I get called into the room, and then they start, everybody starts, greets me. And then the director of education, of course, starts the meeting off, and the superintendents are there. And they start talking about the school and how things are going. And I remember, so this was a very, this was a difficult period, right, in my career, because I was in a new environment. I was facing some challenges I had faced before, but not to that intensity in that level, right?
Mhm.
Especially because of the violent behaviors, the effect on staff, the effect on the community, and stuff like that. So, I hadn't really experienced that yet as a principal, or even Danny as a teacher. I taught for
Mhm.
9, 10 years, and I really, I didn't really have to deal with that type of behavior, that level of behavior. So I remember being in the meeting, Danny, and at some point I don't know if it was because I wasn't feeling well, or if it's because I was nervous or anxious, but it almost seemed like everybody that was talking, it was like as if I was inside like a fishbowl,
Mhm.
and all I can hear was like Charlie Brown voices.
Sure.
For real,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
I caught some, and to this day, I remember some of it, but not all of it for some reason. And I explain that in my book, right at the beginning in the
Mhm.
first chapter. And but the gist of it was, I think they were there to encourage me and to say, whatever you need, we'll be there to give you the resources that you need. Because the rest, I don't remember, Danny. I really don't remember. But I'll always remember that moment there. And because it was part, and I explained it in my book, that was really what instigated the need to change or to transform, in the sense that I needed to do something for myself. I needed to be able to resource myself, because I couldn't keep going the way I was going. I was at that point, I think I was in my my 8th year as a principal, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think I was still doing a lot of stuff, on my own, wanting to be a servant leader, of course, doing things for everybody and making sure that you don't have, too much to do because they already had enough on their plates. And I, quickly realized that I can't keep going like that, because school is changing, the kids were changing, the parents were changing, and I couldn't function like that anymore, because it was killing me almost. It was killing me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big realization for me, and that's where my leadership development journey started. Was after that particular moment there that I had experienced. It made me realize that, you know, if people are depending on me as a leader in the school, as the principal, the kids are depending on me, especially the staff is depending on me, then I got to make sure that I'm at my best, right? I got to make sure that I'm well resourced, I'm rested, I've got a lot of energy, I've got a clear mind, and I've got clear thinking. And at that point there where I was, I didn't have those things. So I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. And I wasn't able to provide to the staff what I needed to provide fully, so that we can be, come together as a team, and to be able to work with those students in particular there that had some pretty high level behavior. So
Right.
that one will always stay in my mind, Danny. That story was some tough kids for sure, great staff, but tough kids, a lot of stress on the staff. Some of the staff also had children in the school, as well as I did. I had
Mm-hmm.
children as well. So you
Mm-hmm.
get that, you're a little bit more worried because your own children are in the same building and things like that.
Right.
So, that's a lot of pressure. And I needed to realize that I need to add value to myself, and I need to build myself. That's number one. That's the oxygen mask right in the plane. That speech that we get before we take off every time. That's what I needed to
Mm-hmm.
do. And things happen for a reason. So it was a really crappy moment for me, but I needed that to
Woke
realize,
you up.
right?
Yeah. 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 I have a similar story in that, I wasn't called in. I mean, I was called in before with supervisors and stuff, but
Yeah.
not in this story. And I went to an event called the Global Leadership Summit, and there from the stage, the guy said, when a leader gets better, everybody wins, right? So that was kind of like the tagline for the summit. And just like ruckus makers, I got from Seth Godin because he's always talking about make a ruckus. Here from the event, I liked that idea. So now that's why I say when you get better, everybody wins.
Yeah.
I like the you in that because it's personal, right? Versus just a leader. But to me, that was a sort of a moment where I realized, in a wake up call, in that, oh, it was great that I was at that event for 2.5 days. But then when I looked at the rest of my calendar, right, 360 something days, there was nothing on there. I might read some books and stuff like that, and on demand courses. That wasn't really a thing yet. But I didn't have a coach, didn't have a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I felt the responsibility, the weight of, just like you said, you have to be at your best. If the community was gonna improve, uh, proportional to like how I improved, right, as
Yeah.
as a leader, then what was I doing? So that was sort of my wake up call, and part of the reason why I started the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of one of the best ways to get free coaching and mentorship, is to start a show, right? And
100%.
talk to really interesting people.
100%.
You've learned a lot from your guests. I've learned a lot from mine. So
Absolutely.
uh, I just didn't realize by putting that out there in public that would change my life in some kind of way. And here we are, like I said, 10 years later. So
And
cool.
but from that experience, that's what made me realize it. And then I went searching for those types for that type of exposure, right? So that's when I started getting
Yeah.
into listening to podcasts. I started reading blogs, and that eventually led to me starting my website, which was a blog site way back when. I started with that, and it led that to me starting my podcast, Inspire Leadership
Yeah.
Podcast, which is my francophone podcast.
Right.
And the return on my investment has been unbelievable. It has helped transform myself into the person that I am today, and that I keep transforming. Right. So, like you said, it's very powerful. And I go back again, Danny. Had it not been for that particular moment, maybe I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you.
Mm,
Right.
yeah. I almost wonder, like, I don't know that you'll have an answer for this, but is there a way, like a listener, if they haven't had that wake up moment, you know, is there something they can do to have it? Or do you need to be called in, Do you need to be called into the office? Do you need to be at an event where it's like, "Oh man, I am leaving some of my best, saving it for whatever reason." I'm not sure if you can answer that or not.
Well, I think this episode here is going to be one thing for sure, and I'm rustling with papers here because the I had mentioned that I did a podcast recording yesterday, and it was based on one of
Mm,
John Maxwell's quotes, and he talked about the four people change in 4 different seasons. So maybe just
mm.
reading, somebody can just read something, and it can encourage them to want to transform, right? Like change, you don't always change because what you're doing isn't good. Is you just want to keep evolving, right? You want to always have become a
Yeah,
better
right.
version of
It's a good
yourself,
point.
right?
Mhm.
So, and he talks about that, and maybe it's just a matter of being aware of these seasons here, which is a good example. There's a bunch of stuff out there that can make me realize that I need to step things up, or I need to start resourcing myself or feeding myself with these things. But I think it just takes a
Mm.
trigger, and that trigger could be different for everybody. The 4 seasons, I think, is a great analogy, right? Like the four seasons are people change in 4 different seasons. I gotta say it's worth it. When they hurt enough that they have to, that's where I was
Yep,
in that story
right.
that I told you.
Yep.
When they see enough that they're inspired to. So if you're exposing
Mhm.
yourself and reading and looking at some podcasts on YouTube or wherever it is, or listening to it on your favorite podcast platform, it could be that. When they learn enough that they want to, once you start learning, you get the taste, and then you want more, right?
Mhm.
And when they receive enough that they're able to. I think that's great. And I think everybody can kind of, like, when you think about those 4 seasons, I think everybody can maybe position themselves and say, well, where am I at today? In which ones of those seasons am I at? And then from there, what can I add to what I'm doing now? You talked about your calendar. What am I doing with my time, right? Am I actually building in some stuff in my schedule and my calendar that's going to allow me to attain that next level? That's going to bring me to that, or keep me transforming into that butterfly, or the next butterfly that I'm going to become, all while bringing me closer to that objective that I'm shooting for, right?
Right. Yeah, cool. I like that metaphor of the 4 seasons, and I know your book, has some 4 sections: awaken, design, flex, redesign.
Yeah.
Maybe we could start with a awaken, but yeah, why is that such an important piece to you?
Well, I think we just talked about it, right? That's the self discovery.
Yeah.
That's when you realize,
Yeah.
and I had quite the awakening in that story that I told you about that day of the Movember event, and in that section there, that is the primary story behind me explaining the reason why it's important, right? So you got to realize it first. If you don't see it, you're not going to do anything, right? So you need to see it first. You need to realize it, and that first section in the book is the awakening. So the book, basically, I wrote it as a roadmap. You know all about roadmaps, Danny. I have your book on my bookshelf here, actually. I
That's
think
kind.
is it the mastermind roadmap that you wrote?
Yeah, Better Leaders, Better Schools Roadmap. Yeah, that's the
Yeah, the
first
Better
one.
Leaders, Better Schools roadmap, right? The mastermind was another book, but
Yep.
so the book is really a roadmap, and I just asked myself the question, if I could have had something, like a resource or a book that could have helped guide me in my leadership development throughout the years, it would have been great. Now I knew there were some out there for sure, but maybe I just hadn't discovered them. So, based on that, that's why the reason why I wrote the book. It's something that anybody can use. Doesn't matter if you're in education or in business, right? So that first part
Yeah.
is that self discovery, right? So it's to explore the importance and the understanding of yourself, right? You need to know what you want. You need to know what type of leader you aspire to be, what kind of an impact that you want to have. And when I say a leader, I don't mean just at work. It's everywhere
Yeah.
in all the levels of your life, right? So, what type of leader do you aspire to be? What are your personal values? What's important to you? That type of work that we need to do when we embark on a journey like that, on the journey of self improvement, which has no finish line. You're always you're always going to want to come back to that awakening. It's not like it's cyclic, right? So you're always going to want to come back to it where you're questioning, okay, where is it that I am? Where have I been? And where do I want to be? And what are my values? Or are they still the same values that are important to me? Do I still want to be the same type of leader? Has my situation changed where I've got to become a different type of leader? So those are all questions I think that we need at the start to be able to, to ask ourselves so that we're able to draw out that map, that roadmap that we need to take to get, to that next level.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying too that it's sort of like a renewing and an ongoing type of thing. Because that makes me think of some of the training I've done in meditation, mindfulness, and
Yeah.
they talked about awakening in there. If you're interested in that topic, but I think one of the misconceptions is that maybe you get to some level where you have your awakening, and then novices think, well, okay, you did it, right?
Yeah.
You can now levitate, and that's fantastic. But it's actually it's an ongoing process as well, because you can lose it. You could start living life in a very unaware, or I like to talk about sleepwalking, right, through leadership in
Yeah.
life,
I like that.
because it's just automatic. I think
Yeah.
it's a good metaphor. And so it's a constant just checking in, and then adjusting based on data that's coming your way. I felt a little just irritated earlier in the day over something stupid, and I
Yeah.
realized that I was just like, kind of wound up about it.
Yeah.
And then I had a choice. Do I
Yeah.
want to continue down that horrible and path of suffering,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just want to
Mm-hmm.
be mad.
Yeah.
Or do I want to let it go because it is stupid, what I'm irritated about, and it's really not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, and life is good? I chose the latter, right?
Yeah.
But that was a moment where I had a choice. So
Yeah. So it's
yeah.
the last thing I'll say about that, Danny, is the awakening part. The reason why I think we all need to do that constantly is because it lays the groundwork for intentional and authentic leadership, I think.
Yeah.
And so you always want to come back to your roots. And the first thing we need to know is who am I and what am I about and what's important to me.
Yeah.
And I think that helps us not to stay stuck. Like you said, it's easy to get into a routine and then you get complacent. And we have to fight that. Human beings, we look for comfort. We look for safety. And safety is in repetitive. Safety can be in routine, safety, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we need to get out of that once in a while, because if not, we're not going to
Shake it
be in
up.
position to grow.
Yeah. It's wild. I love the word intentional. I think there's a lot of leaders who are not leading intentionally. They wouldn't call their leadership unintentional,
Yeah.
but it is, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have that preciseness, that design. So I think, second section, design. I know you talk about building your leaders code or leaders code. Like, so what's that all about?
Well, it comes back to some of the questions that you answered in the awakening part, right? Like, what are your personal values? What type of leader you want to be? What competencies are important to you? So it's just like a code. It's like any other thing that has like this code of conduct, right? So I was thinking about it. I was reflecting on that part of my development as a leader. And I said, it'd be interesting for me to actually build one. And I said, well, why don't I share it at the same time? So I ended up, writing the blog post about it. And that's all part of designing your leadership, right? Like we said, it doesn't happen by chance. You have to make it happen because, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. It can happen by chance, but you're leaving other people or other entities decide for you.
Exactly.
And we don't want to do that. We want to be intentional. We want to be the driver of our own vehicle. And we don't want to leave everything to chance. We want to plan. We want to make sure that we know where we're going. And those things are important, right? So, and that's built through intentional effort. So the second part is, how can I go about to designing my leadership, right? So what does success mean for me? That's one of the first things that I did was to define success. Okay, well, what does that look like? Success looks different people in different situations. Some people, they'll talk about success in their family. Some people will talk about success at work. But even that, if you asked staff at a school and you asked every teacher to define success or what it looks like to them, it could look different. Some of them will talk about students. Some of them will talk about their own teaching. Some of them will talk about their families. So it's very different for everybody. So when we're designing our road to leadership and coming into some of the practical and concrete steps that we're going to take, we want to be working towards success. So what does that look like? That's,
What were some things you added to like your leader's code, or like how do you, how does Joel define success?
yeah. So, I talk about integrity. That's something that's really important to me. I need to be, I need to have integrity towards myself, towards the people that I live with, that I work with, my family, my coworkers. I have to be true to my values
Mhm.
in everything that I do. I can never, and I need to share the values as well. So that's something that I would do. So I would tell people what's important to me, and that, in everything and in every action that I'm going to do, or every decision that I want to make sure that I'm true to those values as well. And
Mhm.
for some reason I'm not, I hope that we've developed enough trust in the team that somebody's going to call me out on it. You know what I mean? Because I might not realize
Mhm.
it, but I want to make sure I stay true to that code, right? So,
Yeah.
that's just another example of what I put in the code. So it's really, I think it comes down to what does it look like if I'm being a leader at my full potential? What does it look like? What does
Mhm.
it sound like? What does it taste like? What are the look fors? What am I going to be seeing? What kind of a feeling is it going to be giving to me if Joel is my leader and he's exuding some of those, those values and those things that are
Mhm.
important to him, and it's showing up? And what kind of an example can that be for the people around me?
Mm.
Right. So that's
That's
why I thought, well, if I'm going to do this type of reflection and come out with just a very simple code, and I've got it in the book as well, it would be really interesting. Maybe other people that could help them, and it can inspire them to even come up with their own code, right? Because when we talk about designing your
for
leadership,
sure.
yeah, we're talking about planning and deciding what we want to do. But I think that one thing that we can't forget, because we're so prone to go towards action, 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 action as a school principal,
Yeah.
that's all, that it goes so fast, and there's so many things that you're always just action, 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 but you can't forget the type of person that you want to be while you're doing those actions, because it says a lot, and it has a huge impact on everything.
Yeah.
So that's
Mm.
part of designing your leadership, right? Is what am I going to do, right? To build connections, to leverage the environment, to do all these things. Okay. So I'm going to have some actions, but what kind of a person am I going to be when I'm going to be doing these things? That has
Mm.
to line up with that leader's code that I wrote for myself, and it has to respect my values. And all those important things, right? So that the base is always solid and always represents, who I am and the type of person that I
Mm.
am, because I want to be a model for other people as well, not just, my family, my kids, but if I can be a model for the people I work with, then that's just another way to add value, right?
Yeah, for sure. ODP Business Solutions, formerly Office Depot Business Solutions Division, has been a trusted partner for schools for 30 years. At ODP Business Solutions, we're by your side to meet your evolving education needs. Now, picture this: a learning environment so engaging students forget to check their phones. Sounds impossible? That's exactly what we helped Belago Academy create. Their secret? Working with ODP Business Solutions to build collaborative spaces that actually work. We didn't just deliver furniture, we delivered a completely new way of learning. From tech integration that makes lessons come alive, to flexible spaces that adapt to any teaching style, to sustainable solutions that reduce your carbon footprint. We're here to help you do school different. And the best part, you get it all from a single supplier, all to help you simplify ordering and streamline budgeting while staying compliant with easy access to cooperative contracts. However you want to advance, ODP Business Solutions has 30 years of experience helping districts like yours get ahead. Visit odpbusiness.com/education to learn more. That's odpbusiness.com/education. Tomorrow's innovators are sitting in today's classrooms, but only if we help them see what's possible. At Play Piper, we make STEM hands on and approachable through kits that connect kids' natural curiosity with real skills in coding and engineering. Students who once thought, I'm not good at science, begin to discover their own potential. It's about repairing the pipeline and fueling the next generation of creators. To learn how you can inspire future innovators in your school, visit playpiper.com. Go to playpiper.com today to learn more. As a school leader, time is your greatest resource, and there is a real sense of urgency when it comes to getting students what they need right now. That's why I love IXL's Universal Screener. In 20 minutes or less, you can identify students in need of intervention. And IXL's Learning Adaptive platform makes differentiating instruction easy. As students learn, IXL adjusts to the right level of difficulty for each individual student. Get started today at ixl.com/leaders. That's ixl.com/leaders. I was thinking about success a lot, this past year, and I wrote some post. I don't remember the name of it. My mentor, one of my mentors, commented on it. He really appreciated it. But I think one of the epiphanies I had is that it's really hard when you're have your business and it's online. It's very visible, and you also see kind of like other people in the space, and that you get into the comparison trap. But when it comes to business too, a lot of people optimize potentially for the wrong thing, right? Like, for example, I mean, I really enjoy making money. That's great, right?
Yeah.
But I want to be really mindful about that and not make it the only pursuit, right? Like that shouldn't, to me, this is my leader's code and part of my values. And if you disagree, that's okay. It doesn't make you wrong. But in my world, like, that probably shouldn't be objective number one: make as much money you can and then die, right? So in the post that I wrote, I think it was called like 11 a.m. eggs, something like that, to that effect. Because you're getting up 5 a.m. You're putting your workouts in, you're putting hours in at the gym, and my workouts typically are like 8 or 9 o'clock. But then by the time I finish, get home, maybe walk the dog, empty the dishwasher, that kind of stuff. Like I'm making my first big meal, right? And I like eggs are a great protein source, and so that, and some toast and some veg is a perfect breakfast to me. But that was the post. It's like, oh, actually, yeah, I could work a little harder, hustle a little more, make a few more dollars.
Yeah.
Or I could really enjoy my mornings, and I could have these eggs at 11 a.m. and that's success. Back to your book, right? Is where I'm connecting the dots. And
I like that.
I think, I want flexibility. I want to do work that inspires me, excites me. I want to work with people that inspire and excite me. And if I'm not doing that stuff, I don't want to do it, And luckily I have that. I can honor that desire, right? I'm in a place where I can make those choices. So
I kind of went through the same thing, and when I was a school principal, in the schools, what I quickly realized is that when I went from doing what I was doing and the impact I was having as a leader, when it went from to get results, testing results and provincial testing results, and when I went from that to building my team, everything changed, right? Because I went from doing stuff that are important, like, those results, assessments and whatnot. That's all important data to consider when you're analyzing things and you're looking at how you're doing things. But when I went into actually developing and concentrating on developing the teachers and the staff that were in my building, because that's who I was closest with, right? It wasn't the kids. The kids, teachers are in the classroom. They're closest to their teacher. Right. The biggest impact I can have is with the adults in the building. When I turned my focus on to that, not only was the impact unbelievable, but I was doing the type of thing that I love doing. And I discovered just how much I loved it, to the point where a little, almost the same as you, Danny. That's what sparked me, starting my business, Inspire Leadership Coaching. And I started doing that on the side because I said, this is unbelievable, this type of work, people building and really working on their competencies and their executive functions and things like that. We were talking about those things with the kids. And then when I started working on those things with the adults and on myself, I was like, my God, I love this. This is unbelievable. The impact is unbelievable. And if more people can just experience that feeling, they're going to want it. They're going to want to have more. And, so getting into what you love doing, that's a bonus, of course. but it just drives you even more, and people notice it. They'll see it,
Yeah.
right? It goes back to what you said about making a lot of money. I think that when people are online, and I'm in the same situation, right? Like I love making money as well, but that can't be the number one driver. And that could be in fitness coaching too, because we talked about my daughter, who's now a fitness
Yeah.
coach, and I hired a professional fitness person for my journey that I'm on right now,
Hmm.
and I shopped. I did a lot of shopping, and let me tell you, you can tell. I think you can tell when individuals are in it for the money versus the ones that are really in it because they love, developing people. They love helping people. I think you can tell in most people the difference. And, my coach said it this morning in an Instagram story. He said, because he was talking about if you wanted to go into online coaching and stuff like that, they said, if you're going to do it for money, you're most likely just going to end up not having clients because people will know, they'll feel it. They'll, even online, they'll notice it,
Mm.
and it'll make a big difference. And I think that if I'm a school principal, I think it'll be the same thing with my staff. If I'm just concentrated on the results for the data and the report cards and the provincial testing and the benchmark testing, I'm concentrated on the numbers. I'm not concentrated on the people. And education is a
People.
people business, right? It's a human being business.
Yeah.
So
Really, life is, and people don't get that joke.
no,
They don't they
yeah,
don't they don't they don't
yeah,
understand there's your secret code, right? If you
yeah.
go
Well,
around in your endeavors and you make it a people focused project, you'll do well. But
yeah. So, the more
yeah,
that the people can realize it, and that's why I wanted, I mentioned it here. If we've got some school administrators and ruckus makers that are listening,
right.
keep your eye on the prize, and the biggest influence I think that you can have as a school leader is with the adults that are in the building. How are you building them? How are you providing the resources necessary for them to grow? If you've got some that are in the I heard enough that I have to change season, and you
Yeah,
recognize that, then what are you doing about it? How are you, coaching them?
fanning
How
the
are you
flame.
accompanying them, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what would you say? Because I gotta realize here, we are both very lucky and
Mm,
really fortunate to be able to sort of have so much autonomy and
yeah.
um, yeah, just choice of what we want to do and get involved in. So if there's a ruckus maker listening or watching, and they're kind of like, yeah, easy for you to say, Joel, Danny, you consulting and whatever, and then you get to design your schedule. My day starts at whatever 7, 8 in the morning, school day, and goes to whatever 3, 4 plus after school activities. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, just what would you say to them? Because I understand the context is different, and if I don't want somebody might get stuck, that might turn into a roadblock and just be like, oh, well, this is all BS. Like
Yeah.
it
Who's
works,
this guy,
but just
right?
not for a principal. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few things that I can say because I've had that question before, right? And I've had that, and it's just
Oh
normal, and
wow.
yeah,
How about
and
that?
it's okay. Like, who are you to come in
Yeah.
and, well, the first thing that I can, if speaking for myself, the first thing that I can lean on is my experience, right? So I was a school principal for 18 years.
Yeah.
I was in education for 27, and this is
Right.
this is the second school year that I'm, 100% autonomous in the business, and that I took an early retirement. But, I've got a lot of experience under my belt, so I think I've got a lot to contribute. So that's number one. Number two, the things that I do teach and the things that I do talk about, and the book, everything in the book, Danny, in my blog post, if you go on my website, they are all things that I have experienced or have done. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always tell when I'm doing some professional development with school leaders, if I have them as guests on the podcast, whatever it is, I always tell them, if Joël McLean can do it, you can do it. The difference is the intentionality. I can tell you right now, Danny, if you do not plan it, it ain't gonna happen. I am where I am today. I started my business doing it on the side. I was taking all my holidays as a school principal to go out and do contracts. I got, I started having to say no, etc. And then looking at the numbers, I was able to retire about 3 years earlier than the date of my retirement. That was
Right.
all planned.
Congrats.
That was all
Yeah.
planned.
Yeah.
I didn't just wake up one day and say, well, in 6 months, no. You
The world
have
just
to
didn't
be
give it to you.
intentional. And the book can help you do that. But and that's not just a plug. I am where I am today because it was thought out and it was planned. And I executed to the best that I could. Sometimes it worked. Most of the time it worked. Sometimes it didn't. But I was able to get back on the horse if I fell off, as we
Mm-hmm.
say. You need to plan it. So if you're in a building and you're listening to this podcast and you're a building administrator or you're a principal, whatnot, or a leader, and you're asking yourself the question, why am I listening to this? Who are these guys? Well, we've got a lot of experience underneath our belt. Number one. Number two, we've spoken with a lot, especially Danny, with a lot of school leaders. So we're continuously learning. We might not be in the environment, and sometimes we are because we do coach and accompany people that are in the environment. So we're getting constantly that feedback, but we're always learning, and those are the things that we want to transmit to people. So sometimes the way I looked at it, Danny, because I thought that as well, listening to some people, and I'm like, well, who's this guy coming in talking with, especially during PD days, right? Like you'll get somebody coming in and you're like, okay, well, who's this person and what are their background and who are they to come and talk to me,
Right.
right, about it? So
Right.
I've asked myself that question, but when I changed my mindset, and I was in the third part, flexing your leadership, is the mindset piece, is instead of
Yep.
seeing it in a negative way like that, I told myself, every person that I meet probably knows something that I don't, so I can learn something.
Mm.
So you know what? It might be somebody that's in the business world and he got invited or she got invited to come and speak to us on a PD day. But you know what? Maybe I'll listen because that's a different perspective. And if I'm to grow as a leader, I think I need to get a little bit of perspective. I can't just stay in my niche and in education all the time in leadership. You got
Sure.
one of the best things you can do, and you've talked about this before, Danny, in multiple episodes. You need to branch out. You need to go and read different stuff. You need to go and look at different people and listen to different people and listen to what they say. And then our job is to be able to link that to what we're doing in our reality. And often, in my experience, and I'll finish with that. In my experience, it often brought different tools that I would have never have had the opportunity to put into my tool chest or my toolbox as a school leader. An example of that is my coaching training, which was mostly business oriented, but I started applying that to my staff and some of the
Mm.
types of coaching that I was doing with them, and the benefits were just unbelievable. So you never know. Every person that you meet
Mm.
knows something that you don't. So
Yeah.
before writing them off right away, I think it's worth listening. And then in my mind, when I'm listening or I'm seeing this person, is how can I link that to my reality and how can I benefit from what that person is sharing with me today? Maybe I can't benefit, and that's okay, but maybe I can, and that's great, right?
We've kind of come full circle because we sort of started the show that way and talking about how a difficult experience was a wake up call and
Yeah.
what can you learn, from the moment. And I just love that approach. And that's something I think about. And usually I joke about this when I come in, do a keynote or facilitate a workshop. And I can position it in different ways. One of them is like, today, like, what's the one thing you can learn that might be a game changer for you? And
Yeah.
really just learn one thing. So sometimes I'm a little direct. Another time I might be a little goofy and fun. And it's one of the Scandinavian countries. Let's just pick Finland. I don't remember which one, but one of those guys supposedly like the happiest country in the world, right? And
Okay.
I love to ask the audience, and I'll ask you: Do you know what makes them the happiest country in the world?
In Finland,
Yeah, let's say it's Finland.
the weather. I don't know.
Extremely low expectations, right?
Oh, there you go.
And I'll say that as a keynote, or workshop leader.
That's
But
funny.
the reason is then they're going through the world just thinking everything is not going to be great today. It's cold, it's snowing.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
talked about weather earlier.
Yeah.
And then if the sun comes out, even for 5 minutes, this is like the best thing ever, right? So it's kind of tongue in cheek, but there's some truth in that.
Yeah.
When allow the opportunity for surprise and delights, in your life. What's the one thing you can learn? And I guess the final way you can look at it, and I've never said it this way. This is the first time I'm going to say it, and it's gonna hurt some people's feelings.
Mm.
But what an egotistical jerk face
Mm.
are you if you say, "Oh, he wasn't a principal for whatever years. I have nothing to learn from him."
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm a
Yeah.
teacher, I'm a classroom teacher for 30 years. Somebody's coming in from whatever world, business world, they're an artist, whatever. Oh, I can't learn from them. What?
Mm,
Are you
mm,
kidding me?
mhm,
What an
mhm.
egotistical.
Yeah,
You're an idiot. Basically, let me just say it this way. If you think that, you are an
yeah,
idiot.
yeah,
Period.
yeah,
Like, that's how I feel. So you don't
yeah.
have to agree with that. That's how I
No, but
feel, though.
you're closing
Yeah.
off, possible avenues of growth, of discovery, of
Yeah.
it's the person is shutting themselves in their little room and saying, I don't want to
Mm.
anything that's different than what's in this room. If it's a different color, a different sound, it doesn't work for me, so I don't want anything to do with it. So you're going to stay locked up in your little room and your four little walls plus the ceiling and the floor, and you're locked in there, oblivious to what's going on around you. And a lot of people
Uh,
do that unconsciously, right?
mm.
And that's how you stay stuck where you are, and that's how people start getting miserable. And you can tell when you walk into a school building who's miserable and who isn't. And
Yeah.
often,
It's not too
those
hard to
people
figure out.
need to open the doors,
Mm.
and it just takes that for them to say, oh, you know what, maybe it's not as bad as I think, but it's very very selfish. It's a very selfish way
Yeah.
to think. Yeah.
That's a
Because
that's a good way
not
of
only
putting
are
it.
you depriving yourself of a better version of yourself, but if you did improve, can you imagine how a bunch of all other people can benefit from that? So not only are you
Mm.
keeping that away from yourself, you're keeping it away from other people that could benefit from you because you had grown. That's how I see it
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah. When you get better, everybody wins. Cool.
Exactly.
Well, we touched on a lot. I think we dug in nicely into the awaken and the
Yeah.
design, a little bit on flex. We didn't really touch on redesign, but that's okay because we want to encourage the ruckus maker checking
Like,
out this show. Go pick up the book, right? You wanna grab that, transcending your leadership. Joel, great job putting that into the world. I think where I'd like to end, if you could put a message on all school marquees around the world for a single day, what would your message be?
if I can put that message on the marquee, I think I would put something like, the best something in terms of the best way that you can improve is by helping others. So by helping others, you're almost guaranteed to improve as well. So I think that's something, and I think in today's world is a message that needs to be put out there as well. I think everybody can benefit from waking up and saying, today maybe I can choose one person, and somebody that's within my family or somebody that I work with, and I'm going to do something with this person. I'm going to try to add some kind of value to that person, and I guarantee you that because you've done and added value to the other person, it's going to add value to you as well. That's always reciprocal in my experience anyway. So I think I'd put that up there to inspire people to do good things towards others, and it'll come back to them.
Hey, Ruckus Maker, thanks again for pressing play. I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I enjoyed recording it. And before you go, if today's episode shifted something for you, where you want to do school different or you have a new idea about education, then I want to invite you to subscribe to ruckusmakers.news. That's our newsletter. And you get 3 new opportunities to do school different every week sent to your inbox. It's trusted by over 5,000 school leaders. And if you want to reimagine education within a traditional setting so that you could create a campus experience worth showing up for, subscribe for free at ruckusmakers.news.